I got the goldfish. The goldfish, yep, that's what I got. Hello everybody, happy Frog Friday. My name is Carly and this is Hugo, and today I'm going to be talking about all the books that I read in the month of May, which was, let me sit him down, he will probably leave. No, I'm just going to hang out. Which was during Lexie from Books with Lexie's Escape the Readathon, Go Team Partiers. We were really struggling there and we did end up in 4th place, but we had a good time and I read a lot of good books. So I ended up reading I think 24 books, but a lot of those were like novellas or short stories, so they're not really books, but still a really good reading month overall. We definitely started out on a lower note with the ratings, but it got better as the month went on. The first book that I read this month was Scorched by Margot Douaihy. There's no way I said that right. She's like Irish or Scottish, I believe. And I don't know if you know anything about Irish names, but they're always like impossible to pronounce. Whatever you think it is, it's not that. This one looks like it's going to be the first in a series. It says it's a sister holiday mystery #1. I had really high hopes for this one, but it ended up only getting 3 stars. First of all, I just love the cover and I loved the premise of it. It was basically about this nun who's called Sister Holiday, and she solves mysteries. She's a not like other nuns nun. She has tattoos, she smokes. She just doesn't take anyone's shit, basically. And one of my favorite TV shows is Dairy Girls. It's on Netflix if you haven't seen it. Highly recommend. It's one of the funniest things I've ever seen. Like, it's about these girls who go to a Catholic school in Ireland, which it sounds like super horrible. I usually don't care about anything religious, but it's just really, really funny. So when I saw this book, I don't know, I was thinking like maybe that it would have those vibes from Dairy Girls, that type of humor, but I was just kind of disappointed. It's also the first book that's being published under Gillian Flynn's like publishing group. I haven't read any of her books yet, but I know she's like a huge name in the thriller genre. I still might give the series another shot because, again, I do really like the characterization and the premise in general. I just think that the mystery that she was trying to solve was pretty boring. Things were being caught on fire and she was trying to figure out who was the arsonist. Like, there was really nothing to it. You know, I didn't care about the mystery that she was trying to solve. So maybe if they give her a better plot line in future books, the character can kind of develop more and I'll enjoy it a lot more. But for now, it's just kind of middle of the line, 3 stars. Next up, I read Shit Cassandra Saw by Gwen E. Kirby, and this one I also gave 3 stars. Wow, this feels like forever ago. It was literally one just a month ago, but I don't really remember any of the stories now at this point, a month later, so clearly none of them stuck with me. But it's a short story collection where each story focuses on some sort of strong feminist or women power, women taking back their sexuality, that type of thing. So it was kind of interesting, but none of them stuck with me, so I think that 3-star rating that I gave it is pretty fitting for it. I pretty much just picked this up because of the cover. Like, what is that? It just reminded me of when people put like the one eye emoji and then the lips and then the eye again. I really liked it. Also, just the colors are pretty cool. So I don't know, that was 2 books of me just judging them by their cover and ending up with 3-star reads, so maybe I need to stop doing that. Then the next book was Sign Here by Claudia Lux, which was unfortunately another 3 stars. This one I had high hopes for once again. I'd seen it put around a couple of places and the premise seemed interesting enough. Basically, this guy works in hell on, I think, the 5th floor of hell, and he's told that he's gonna get some sort of promotion or something if he can get one more person in this particular family to sell their soul to the devil to end up in hell. So you're just following this guy, like trying to get this person to sign it. And I thought that was a super interesting premise, but it ended up just kind of going nowhere. Like, I think this was 400 pages or something, and I felt like it went on for way too long. I just stopped caring about the plot, but I did really like the atmosphere and kind of the humor of it that is set up in the beginning, just like the little quirks of what hell is like. So an example of that is pens in hell. You know, when you're like looking for a pen somewhere in your house and you find one and you scribble on a piece of paper, that first one never works. Like, you always have to go find another pen. Well, in hell, the way it works is the first 4 or 5 pens that you try don't work, so only the 5th one works. And it's not like you're just like picking the wrong ones and you could pick the right one. No, like every single time you have to try out 4 pens before you can get to that one that actually works. And I thought that was pretty funny. Just like little things like that about hell. I really like those descriptions of it, but kind of like the Sister Holiday, the general plot didn't pull me in. Then with book 4, we had our first 5-star with Lock Every Door by Riley Sager. And I know that's kind of controversial. Riley Sager always is. You either like them or you hate them. I feel like a lot of his books have very skewed opinions. I've liked the 3 or so that I've read, but I did not like Survive the Night. But I liked this one. I liked The House Across the Lake. And did I read another one? I feel like I read another one and I'm just kind of forgetting it. Maybe not. Maybe I just like these 2. I gave 5 stars, and Survive the Night was like a 2 or 3 stars. Basically, this girl needs a job and she finds this job listing for someone to just come house sit at this really expensive apartment, and she's like, no way, this seems too good to be true. Well, maybe it is. And that's kind of all I'm gonna say. I like the ending of it. I thought it was fun. I know some people hate it. I think with Riley Sager, they can be really fun and entertaining. You just kind of have to, there goes Hugo. You just kind of have to go into them knowing that it's going to be like crazy and stupid and you need to suspend your disbelief. So if you go into it with that mindset, I think you can have a lot of fun with his books. But I know some people just can't get past the stupid actions and twists that happen within the book. Next was And Then I Woke Up by Malcolm Devlin, and I gave this one 4 stars. This is a pretty short story. It's like under 200 pages. I think this one's kind of better going into mostly blind, but what I will say about it is it's a zombie apocalypse type of story, but don't go into it expecting a lot of action. It's more psychological, I guess, or the mindset behind it. If you like unreliable narrators or possible unreliable narrators, go into this because you're not sure what the truth is. Are these zombies real? Are they not real? Who knows? Even though it is about a zombie apocalypse, the zombies are kind of a stand-in for propaganda and how easily people can be swayed in their mindsets and beliefs just on what they're being told. So there's kind of some deeper meaning behind it. Then I decided to read The Last Housewife by Ashley Winstead, mainly because it is one of Lexie's favorite books and we share a lot of book tastes, so of course this one ended up being a 5-star. It is super dark. I read this as an audiobook while on a car ride in the car with my parents, just listening to this one on full blast so I didn't have to listen to whatever they were listening to in the car. And it's kind of an interesting one to be hearing while surrounded by your family. It is super dark. If you have any triggers, you probably don't want to read this one. It's about a sex cult basically, but it's also a mystery thriller. This girl finds out through a podcast that one of her friends has passed away, and she's kind of the only one that realizes that this person passed away in the same way that one of their other friends back when they were in college like 10 years ago passed away in pretty much the exact same way. So she has a feeling that even though this has been ruled as suicide, that it may be homicide and people aren't taking it seriously. So she teams up with this podcaster to kind of investigate what's really going on here, and she has to face her past. There's a lot of dark sexual things going on here, but it is really good but really messed up. I think it's like 80% or so into the book. There's one particular twist that happens. There's multiple like twists throughout, so I'm not gonna kind of say anything, but I just wasn't expecting it, and I was literally like laying in bed in a hotel room with my eyes closed, just like listening to a little bit more before I went to bed, and I just remember my eyes just like opening wide when I heard that one particular twist scene. I was just not expecting it at all. I was like almost asleep and I just like woke up fully in that moment, so that was pretty cool because usually things don't like have physical reactions for me when I read them. But basically the one girl and her 2 friends were lured into this sex cult when they were in college, but it wasn't one that you normally think of because they were still going to school and stuff and nobody realized that they were a part of this. Also, I went to a book festival this month, the Gaithersburg Book Festival, and I got to listen to Ashley Winstead talk, and I got to meet Lexie there because she was there, and there's no other because. She was there, I was there. We were both there. We sat in the front row. It was cool to get to hear. She also mentioned that the book might be turning into a TV show soon, so that's pretty cool. I would love to see how it gets adapted. But speaking of the book festival, while I was there, I got all of these books. So there was a used book sale, which like pretty much all of the books were in amazing condition, so I like couldn't say no to buying these books. I got The Gunslinger by Stephen King, so I will finally be able to start my Dark Tower journey sometime soon. Keep your eyes peeled for that one. A little scared though, I don't know. I haven't heard great things about that first book. It's kind of like you need to get through it, just to get to the rest of the series. Watership Down by Richard Adams, which I have already read this book and I really loved it, so I wanted to have a copy for myself. Then I got The Wind-Up Bird Chronicle by Haruki Murakami. I've been meaning to read this one for forever. So far I've only read, well, full-length books. I've only read Kafka on the Shore, but I want to read all of his works, so I'm excited to get to this one, hopefully this month. This I solely bought because of the cover. Like, I didn't even read the inside of it. I just saw the cover and was like, yeah, that's pretty freaking cool. But it is Rant by, to be honest, I don't even really know how to say his name, but it's Chuck Palahniuk. I definitely said that wrong, but it is the same author who wrote Fight Club, which I did not realize at all when I picked it up. Again, this was solely a cover buy. I think it's about like a serial killer or something. It's like his memoir or something like that. It's supposed to be really crazy and messed up, so you know, my type of book. Then I got The Raw Shark Text by Stephen Hall. I, again, really have no clue what this one is about. I've just had it on my TBR for a while. I think I added it because I found it on some list saying that it was similar to House of Leaves, so another really weird, messed up book. Love those. Then I picked up The Blade Itself by Joe Abercrombie. You know, I'm not a fantasy girly, but this one is supposed to be like a very violent fantasy, and I've really only heard good things about this author, so I'm excited to get to it. I'm making my dad read it before me because he loves reading fantasy, so I told him he needs to read it and tell me if it's good. Then I got The Goldfinch by Donna Tartt. I have not read any of her books, but I need to read this one and The Secret History both, but this one is pretty intimidating. It's one of those ones that like no one wants to get through because it's super boring, but I feel like it's one that I just need to read at some point. 771 pages, so you know, I don't think I'll be reading that one anytime soon. My mom said she tried to read it one time and did not make it very far through. And then, not from the used book sale, but from the bookstore in there, I ended up getting these copies new. Flux by Jinwoo Chong and The Curator by Owen King. I listened to them talk together on like the same interview panel and they both sounded pretty interesting, so I decided to get them and it was pretty cool. I got them signed. Owen King even had this little cat stamp that he put in there that I thought was pretty cute. Hopefully I will get to both of these in June. Where was I? I was on The Last Housewife. If you like dark books, dark thriller mysteries, and you like reading about cults and you don't have many triggers, I would definitely give that one a shot. Next up was Stolen Tongues by Felix Blackwell. I give this one 4 stars. I took this in my isolated horror video, but it's basically this couple who goes to a cabin and they start hearing voices outside and then they leave the cabin and the voices never leave them. It definitely creeped me out while I was camping. Audiobook is pretty good. The narrator makes different sounds for those voices outside. Then I read Anybody Home by Michael J. Seidlinger. I'm not sure how to say that. I ended up giving that one 5 stars. I really liked it. If you live alone or you plan on living alone, which I have and do in the future, maybe it's not the best book for you. It's basically told in the point of view of a home invader and it's second person, so the home invader is teaching you how to do a home invasion. It takes place over 48 hours starting on May 14th, and I actually read this on May 14th, so I felt even more engrossed into the story. But it's teaching you how to like scope out the house, how to sneak in, how to hide in places, all the things, you know, how to mess with the people. It's messed up. If home invasions are a big fear of yours, you probably want to skip out on this. Then I read Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke by LaRocca. I gave this one 4 stars, but I was flip-flopping between 4 and 5 stars. I only read this one because of Cailey from, I was gonna say Books with Cailey, like she did in that one sprint, but no. Cailey from Cailey's Books read this one, and the way she described it, I just had to pick it up because she described it as someone trying to sell an apple peeler but then deciding not to sell it. And I was like, that, after reading this now, it's like, how that is like the bare minimum of how you describe the plot of this book. Like, that's the initial setup, but then it just gets insane after that. So this is another one of those messed up short horror stories. I think it will stick with me for a while. It's very weird and it's very gross. I don't really want to tell you much more. Basically, these 2 girls start talking to each other on a LGBTQ website, and one of them is like, I'm selling this apple peeler and it's really special to my family, and I thought I would check if anyone out here wanted it. And then they start kind of going back and forth with each other. Their relationship develops online, and one of them starts asking the other one to do things, and that's all I'm going to say for that. Then I read We Need to Do Something by Max Booth III. I wanted to read this for Realmathon in April, but I didn't get to it. It was one of Lexie's host favorites for that one, so I figured I should read it for her readathon. And of course, 5 stars for that one. It was great. It's another short read horror novella. It's like under 200 pages again. I didn't have any tornadoes going on during it, so it wasn't atmospheric in that way. I forget what state it takes place in, but basically these tornado warnings are going off, so this family of 4, mom, dad, brother, sister, go into their bathroom to wait out the tornado, and then when they think it's over and they go to leave, the door to the bathroom won't open up because there's a giant tree blocking the door from opening, and they end up stuck in this bathroom. They don't have any food. Again, things just kind of get weirder as they go on. If you can't tell, I like weird horror books that are messed up, so if that's not what you're looking for, maybe don't go with this one. I am going to remember the dog licking scene for quite a while. If you read it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I did give it 5 stars, but there was like one question that I wanted answered that didn't get answered, but I think it's fine. If you're going to be annoyed by ambiguous endings and not having all the answers, then this one won't be for you because it's more of the journey, not the destination. Then I read Before the Coffee Gets Cold by, oh, I'm gonna butcher this, Toshikazu Kawaguchi. This has been on my TBR for forever. I wanted to love it because the premise sounds so good. I don't know if you somehow haven't heard of this book by now. You probably have though. There's a coffee shop that lets you go back in time. It's only this one particular seat in the coffee shop that if you sit there, you can go back in time and talk to people in your past, like relive those moments. The rules of it are that you can't leave that seat, so the person has to be there that you're talking to, and you will go back to like the present day once your coffee gets cold. So you have a very limited amount of time and you can't leave the coffee shop. And so it's just multiple stories of different people going back in time, having various conversations. Very reflective, very emotional. I wanted to love it. I don't think I'm going to end up reading the rest of them in the series because I know there's at least 2 other ones. I only gave it 2 stars. It wasn't for me. I think I've been reading all these great, creepy, weird horror books, and so I was just bored by the plot of Before the Coffee Gets Cold, but I know it's very well loved, so if that sounds like something you would like, I would still give it a shot. And it's translated from Japanese. Then I read What Lies in the Woods by Kate Alice Marshall. This one I only gave 4 stars. In terms of thrillers, I haven't been loving a lot of thrillers lately, but this one ended up being pretty good. I found this again from my isolated horror books. I think I say this one is a better thriller. I almost gave it 5 stars because it is a darker one. There's more triggers in it and it leans more into that horror and dark themes that most thrillers tend to avoid or kind of like stop at. This one starts crossing that line and getting deeper into the grittier, more traumatic themes. Basically, these girls witness a murder when they're younger, and the person gets put in jail pretty much based on their testimony. There's not much evidence besides that. You go to the present day, people are starting to question whether they were lying or not. So it flip-flops back and forth between the present day and what actually happened back then and whether or not they were telling the truth. And there are multiple reveals throughout that are pretty good twists. Then I read Alice Isn't Dead by Joseph Fink, and this one was only 3 stars. I had never heard of Joseph Fink before, but apparently he runs a pretty famous podcast, which I've never listened to before, but I just really like the premise of this one. There's this lesbian couple, and one of them, I think they're married, her wife goes missing, but then she starts to show up at all these like weird things that are going on around all the country. Like she sees her in news reportings and stuff. So she gets a truck and she starts traveling across the country and trying to find her wife again, which I really like the premise of it, but I just got bored by it. I honestly, I read this 2 weeks ago or something, and I already kind of forgot all that happened within it, so it really didn't stick with me. Maybe if you like the podcast though, then you should give it a shot. Then I picked up Sundial by, I still don't know how to say this author's name. Is it Catriona Ward, or is it just Katrina Ward, or is it something else? Let me know. You know, I think I was in a sprint and I was like, guys, help me choose my next read between this, and this. And like literally everyone told me to read Sundial, so I did. And this one was another 5-star, back in the 5-star territory, which is good because I was getting a little disappointed by my reads. This was my first book by the author and I really loved it. This is another one of those dark horror thriller book. I would say it's like dual timeline. I would say trigger for animal abuse, although usually I don't like reading about animal abuse, and it does like weigh heavier on my heart since I love animals so much, but I think it really served a purpose in this book and I wasn't bothered by it as much as I usually am, so I still ended up giving it 5 stars. It might work for you, but if you're like really upset by it, I would skip this one. Basically, this mom finds out that her daughter tried to kill her other sister, and so the mom decides to take her daughter just by herself, the 2 of them, to where she grew up. She kind of grew up sort of in a cult, I guess, where they did like experiments on these dogs. I think it does a really good job at combining horror, mystery, and thriller all together, and there are a lot of twists and things being revealed throughout. I think they did a really good job at the multi-POV, multi-timeline type of thing. Then I picked up Finlay, Donovan is Killing It by Elle Cosimano. I'm not exactly sure how you say her name, but I gave this one 5 stars as well. It was just super funny. If you haven't heard of this one yet, basically it's this struggling author who's getting a divorce and she really needs money, so she meets up with her agent at a Panera Bread just to talk about how her book is going, and she writes about this like hitman or like serial killer or something like that. So they're talking about the plot of it, but they don't like specify that it's a book, and so someone next to them overhears it, and when they leave, they had written a little note and kind of slipped it to her that said, I need this person killed, $50,000. The person thought she was talking about a hit job and that she was a hitman, and didn't realize that she was just talking about like a fiction book that she was writing. The author, since she's kind of strapped for cash, she really debates whether or not she wants to just take this hitman job and make a bunch of money and make her life a lot easier. Every action just kind of snowballs after each other. You know, everything goes wrong that could possibly go wrong. It kind of reminds me of the TV show Dead to Me, if you've ever seen it, the way that things just keep going wrong but they're able to keep covering it up. This was more of a lighter book compared to what I've been reading, so it was good to get that kind of break and change of pace with the comedy thrown in. I really liked it, and I know this is a series, so if any of you have read the other ones in the series, let me know if they're just as good as this one or if I should just leave it at that. Then I continued the 5-star train with In the Lives of Puppets by TJ Klune. This one is basically about these robots and a human that live together in the trees, and one of them gets captured by these people, and the rest of the group has to go on a journey across the country or world or whatever to go save that robot. I think if you like House in the Cerulean Sea, you'll also really like this one. It has that heartwarming feeling of TJ Klune, but the way I describe it, the book A Psalm for the Wild Built by Becky Chambers, it's like if you took that book, the Monk and Robot books, that series, and then you had TJ Klune write it and expand on it because it's a much longer story. It has that very cozy feeling of the Monk and Robot book and the same type of situation and type of setting. I thought it was very cute. It has a lot of similar themes to the House in the Cerulean Sea. I haven't read Under the Whispering Door yet, but I do really want to, so I can't compare that one to it, but I have a feeling they're all kind of very similar books. The next book that I read was Killers of a Certain Age by Deanna Raybourn. I ended up giving it 4 stars. I really liked it. It's basically about these 50 or 60-year-old women. There's 4 of them, and they are assassins killing off really bad people. They're not hitmen, so they don't like take requests, you know, they don't get paid just to kill anybody. They're working for an organization that specifically targets bad people, and they've been doing it since they were in their 20s, but now that they're around 60 years old, they're finally retiring, but all of a sudden their retirement doesn't go as planned. It's kind of a hard job to just retire from. You have a lot of people who don't quite like you. It's about them trying to retire, but then things start going south and they have to figure out how to get out of the situation that they're in. I gave it 4 stars. I thought it was really fun change of pace to get to see some older main characters, because a lot of the time you just get people in their 20s or so as all the main characters for books. Then the next 2 books that I read I'm going to talk about together because I basically read them at the same time and they really go well together. First one is This Is Where We Talk Things Out by Caitlin Marceau and The Writing Retreat by Julia Bartz. Both of these take place in the winter in cabins, isolated settings. I gave This Is Where We Talk Things Out 5 stars and The Writing Retreat 4 stars. I actually got to see Julia Bartz be interviewed at the same time as Ashley Winstead at that book festival, so that was pretty cool, but I liked all the twists. Gave it 4 stars. This Is Where We're Talking About. It's really short. It's like under 100 pages. This girl is estranged from her mother, but after her dad died, her mom wants to rekindle their relationship and work out their problems because they're kind of the only family that they have left. So the daughter agrees to go with the mom up to this cabin for the weekend and kind of try to repair their relationship, but they get snowed in and things just start getting worse and worse. It's another one of those weird horror stories. I read this one because Lexie told me to, and you know, if Lexie likes a book, I'm probably gonna like it most of the time. Definitely in the description of the book, I remember seeing it said it was a combination of Something and Misery by Stephen King, and 100%. Personally, I think if you combine this book and The Writing Retreat, you get Misery, which is why, Lexie, you need to read Misery at some point. I don't know how you haven't read it. Well, I do know how, because it's like 500 or 600 pages, and you don't want to read a book that's that long, and you're so-so on Stephen King. But I think if you're gonna like any of Stephen King's books, it would be Misery. Even if you've seen the movie, the book is a lot better and it gets grosser than the movie does. And I felt tense and stressed out during the whole time reading it, and I know that's something you like to feel as well when you're reading a book. And then The Writing Retreat is basically this famous author hosts this contest where 4 or 5 writers are chosen to go out to her cabin, and they are in a competition to determine who gets their book published, basically. They just all are writing a novel at this retreat, and the best one gets their book published by this famous author. So it's a super cool opportunity for them, but you know, it's a thriller, so things go wrong. And I say the 2 of them combined make up Misery because the aspect that The Writing Retreat has that This Is Where We Talk Things Out doesn't is the actual... I'm sure my neighbor is just outside in their own yard because they're not allowed to do that apparently. So in The Writing Retreat, there's little excerpts in between of the story that she's writing while she's there, and Misery does that exact same thing. You not only get the story of someone being trapped in this cabin with this crazy person, but then you also get the story in between that he's writing. So I really think if you liked both of those, you would like Misery. and vice versa. Next up, I read Suburban Hell by Maureen Kilmer, and I just randomly found this one looking through Libby. If you look at the reviews for this, I would 100% agree with everyone that says this is for fans of Grady Hendrix. It literally feels like it could have been written by him. Like, I think if you gave this to a Grady Hendrix fan and you told them it was written by him, they would believe you. There's this group of ladies in a neighborhood who are all friends and they hang out. One of them has a she shed that they have in their backyard, and they decide to christen it one day, and then that christening brings out something horrible, a spirit, and it goes into one of these ladies. She starts acting weird, and the other ladies decide that they might need to perform an exorcism on her. It feels a lot like My Best Friend's Exorcism, but then there's a lot of other aspects thrown in from literally each of his books. I definitely see some things from How to Sell a Haunted House and Horror Store, and I have not read the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires, but I know that's about like a group of women coming together, so I think that is very similar to this one as well. So overall, I think just like the writing style and the humor and the overall plot is just super similar to Grady Hendrix. So if you like his books at all, I would give this one a try. It was a fun read. Then I picked up The Butcher and the Wren by Elena Urquhart. I guess she is a podcaster, and this was like her first book. Oh, also Suburban Hell I ended up giving 4 stars, and then Butcher and the Wren, I'm also giving this one 4 stars. And this one is like a dual POV. You have from a, why can't I think of the person? What's the person called who like looks at the bodies and like tells how they died and stuff? I'm gonna look up the word and I'm gonna put it here because I'm just full on blanking on it right now. But you have POV from one of them and then the point of view from a serial killer, and you kind of get both sides of the killings, and it just kind of gets crazier and crazier as you go on. But I really liked it, but then it just like stops, so I gave it 4 stars. I'm not sure if it's supposed to be like a series or something. It doesn't really say that anywhere, but it's like there's no ending. Like you don't know what happens. It's just sort of ambiguous. Like it just cuts off. Like there needs to be another half to this book, or a whole second book, so I hope that comes out with the sequel. It reminded me a lot of Mr. Mercedes, how you get both point of views. That one was like the police officer and the serial killer, but it kind of feels a lot like that to me. And then the next book was They Were Here Before Us by Eric LaRocca again. This one I hadn't heard before, but obviously I had heard of the author. It's another one of those weird horror stories. It's a collection of 5 short stories. It's like 100 pages long. Heavy on the animal abuse trigger warnings. I ended up giving this one 4 stars. I think multiple ones within this are definitely going to stick with me just from the animal cruelty aspect. There's also like bestiality in this, so it gets very weird. Know that going into it, but honestly if you're reading anything by this author, you should know that in the first place. So, and then I picked up Nibble Nibble Crunch by Willow Rose. I just happened to find it on Hoopla when scrolling through it, and it was a pretty short one. It was like 100 pages again. I haven't even rated this one yet. It's probably gonna get like a 2 or 3 stars. It was just like whatever. I didn't really like it. It's basically this little girl. Her mom is kind of verbally abusive to her and like talks about her weight and stuff. Her mom's just like a horrible character. It's like snowing one day, and so the little girl decides to go outside and she finds this snowman that I don't even think she made it. I think she just found the snowman, and the snowman comes alive, I guess, and starts doing things to the people around it, and it's just kind of crazy, and you really have to suspend your disbelief for it. I wasn't actually scared by any of it, but there is a little bit of animal abuse in it. I thought the ending was good. It was okay for what it was, you know, it's pretty short, but I wouldn't like recommend it to anyone really. And then lastly, I read Toothworms by Laura Gislason. This is only a 7-page short story, but if you have any type of like tooth or dentist fear, this one has the potential to really affect you. Don't read this if you love spaghetti and want to keep eating spaghetti. Personally, my love of spaghetti overpowers my feeling towards the spaghetti that was brought on by this short story, but there are some people that you probably will not want to eat spaghetti for a very long time after reading this. It's really only like a couple paragraphs in it that are absolutely horrible, but the title is very accurate to the story. Toothworms, just know that. It's very disgusting. So if you like gross horror, you want to check it out. It's only 7 pages. It's free. I'll put the link in my description, but click at your own risk. I'm done talking about this story. And that's all the books that I read this month for Escape the Readathon. It was a great readathon. I found a lot of new channels as well that I could subscribe to and watch. So thank you to Lexie and all the co-hosts for hosting this amazing readathon. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing, which, speaking of subscribing, I am now over 100 subscribers, and if you were there in a certain live sprint, I agreed to do something if I reached 100 subscribers, which is why a lot of you are here in the first place. I told you I would eat an entire raw onion, so you can expect that video from me coming up sometime soon. I still need to film it. I've been putting it off. It will be out though. I will be doing it. Don't worry. I'm putting it in here so you know. You can tell me to come back here and be like, you said you're gonna do that. I will. Don't worry. For today's frog fact, I'm gonna be talking to you about wood frogs. Wood frogs are known for their antifreeze-like abilities. Basically, I don't know if you know, but a lot of frogs are either going to hibernate in the winter or when it gets cold out, so they'll go underground, or they'll like migrate down south where it's warmer. But in particular, the wood frog does not really do either of those. They kind of stay up on the ground level, but they might go like under some leaves or something. And they essentially just, their entire body freezes. Like they don't breathe, they don't move, they don't do anything. They're just frozen because of this antifreeze-like chemical that flows through them. And then when it gets warmer, they thaw out. And it's pretty cool. Scientists are kind of studying it in particular to try to use the science of this antifreeze quality to make human organs last longer for transplants, because once they're out of the body, you only have like a certain amount of short period of time that they can be then put into someone else. And so they're trying to look at this property of the wood frog being able to freeze themselves in time and implement that into human organs to give them a wider window of transplanting organ donations. One fun way that science is looking towards animals for human improvement. Thanks again for watching. I hope you all have a great day. Goodbye.